Hello, everyone. Um, First of all, my apologies for this delay. This is my first time doing a live on YouTube, and therefore I faced some technical difficulties. So my apologies, sincere apologies for that. Today, we have a special guest with us, uh, the director of the Center for Islam Studies, Dr. Ismail Sezgin. With Dr. Ismail Sezgin, we will be talking about instrumentalization of Islam by the Erdogan regime. Let us welcome our guest. You're welcome, Dr. Ismail Sezgin.
Thank you very much. It's good to be in your screen now. Hopefully, we'll have a nice event. I would like to maybe remind people who are watching this that it is your channel, so it's a good time to probably subscribe to it. It's not my channel as we regularly used to do this program in there. Yes.
Right. So thank you so much for joining us today. And so today, as the title of our live streaming shows, we will be talking about instrumentalization of Islam by the Erdogan regime. Recently, in one of my Urdu videos, I discussed about this issue. In which I discussed, I talked about how some of the members of parliament of the AKP party, which is the party of Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, how they make some un-Islamic statements to praise Erdogan or the ruling party in Turkey, the government in Turkey. For instance, AKP MP Hussein Shahin once said that, believe me, even touching our prime minister is worship to me. So, one of the AKP MPs said that touching Erdogan is a form of worship for me. Another AKP MP, Fevai Arslan, he said Erdogan is a leader who possesses all the characteristics or attributes of Allah. And the list is long. There are other member of parliament and ministers, even cabinet ministers. One of the cabinet ministers, for example, Egemen Bash, once mocked one of the verses of Quran, the Surah Baqarah, saying that, I tweet about it every morning. I tweet verses like that every morning, and people like it. So this is how this is not only about this is how, for example, they're using Islamic arguments to praise the president, the leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, but also they insult Islamic the Quranic verses. That's what Egemen Vash did, and that minister was also involved in the corruption scandal. That's a different debate, but yeah, that is a person who is controversial, not only because of his role in the corruption scandal in Turkey, but also is a person who clearly and openly mocks the one of the Quranic verses. So and these are some of the statements that totally contradict the fundamentals principles of Islam. But of course, coming to the practices of the government, there are many un-Islamic things over there too. But in this program, I would really like to talk about this issue first: how the AKP members make statements that are totally contradictory to the Islamic principles. So, Dr. Sezgin, what would you do? You have something to add to this?
Well, to begin with, like when you say instrumentalization of Islam by the Erdogan regime, it's a bit like, of course, we're talking about a specific political leader and his instrumentalization of religion. He is instrumentalizing many other things as well, and which is expected from politicians to do. And your examples were very right. I forgot most of them because it is so much ingrained in the in the Turkish political context that people know that it's either nationalism or the religion, or let's say in order, it's religion and nationalism sells in Turkish politics. So everyone actually tries to address that, learn their lessons from Erdogan. And I think Erdogan does this the most successful way, and not only limited to the ways that you explained, like with verbal instrumentalization of the religious topics. Having said that, sometimes for some reason my screen flickers, but I'm hoping that will be, yeah, whenever I realize that, at least I'll try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the big things that, well, before we talked about Erdogan, I just recently realized there is another politician who is trying to get back into politics. And what he does is actually he's trying to almost walk Erdogan's footsteps. So this morning I saw a video where he's finishing off his breakfast and he says, "It is Sünnet-i Seniyye to finish off your plate." And he mentions Sünnet-i Seniyye twice. It's not only Sunnah, it is Sünnet-i Seniyye. And everyone immediately get it because his acting is not as good as, not as believable as Erdogan. And it doesn't come as genuine. It doesn't look as genuine. It feels like a bit off. So people see that. But in the case of Erdogan, of course, people believe that he's deeply religious person. Hence, his showing off is just manifestation of his belief, and which should be, you know, like they say, if you're a Muslim, you should show that anyway. Why would you hide it? That sort of a thing. I think one of the big instrumentalization of religion in most recent history was to convert Hagia Sophia Mosque, Hagia Sophia Museum into mosque again, because this was like one of the last resorts that Erdogan would have done to motivate Muslim majority background in Turkey, Muslim majority grassroots in Turkey, to show that Islam is still at the center of his party politics or his vision. Yeah, I think it's a very, very important part, and I think the other politicians in his party is just playing along in those lines. So, you know, like the example you gave, the guy is probably trying to be as flattering as possible, because they're in the receiving, and Erdogan believes he's someone special, he's someone chosen, he's someone destined to make a difference in the world, which he does in many ways. It creates a lot of difference in the world. Yeah, I mean, I think it does that. And there is a chance that recently the conversation, I was watching something about an interview from Ahmet Kuru, who is a very well versed academic in the field. He was commenting whether Erdogan would bring Khilafah, the Ottoman Khalifa position back into politics again, and it is the next probably goal post for Erdogan, to introduce that, to reaffirm his position not only in Turkey but also in the wider Muslim world.
True. Yeah, I mean, since you talked about the Sunnah, the politician talking about it, it reminded me of another AKP minister, a minister in the AKP government, Aga Kafkas, who once said that when we lay the foundation of any building, any facility, we also provide the date of its opening. This is the Sunnah of Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So the term that we use for the practices of the Prophet of Islam is using the same for the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So this is, that clearly reminded me of this instance, where I thought it would be relevant to also mention it here. But it's not only...
It is, if you hold your thought there, just because it's very relevant again, one of the most high-level expression of that was done by Ahmet Davutoğlu. He's a knowledgeable person. He's a professor of many things, let's say. But when he was taken over, the Justice and Development Party from AK Party, he made it very clear, whilst he was taking off his jacket, he says, because before him Erdogan took off his jacket or something, like as adhering to Erdogan's sunnah, some sort of a comment in there, because he was trying to show that he walks in his footsteps. I'm not sure whether that is very, very sinister. The terminology is of course a bit problematic, but maybe they meant like they're following his footsteps, not necessarily like they put him in place of prophet or something. But there is that sort of a religious terminology goes around. Yeah, please continue. You were saying something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, had it been one-off incidents or one-off statements, we could have, given the benefit of doubt to Davutoglu or other ministers who have made such remarks. But the fact is there is I mean, we have seen a series of such remarks by many of AKP affiliates or sympathizers. So that really raises the question that, on the one hand, the Erdogan regime and the president himself is trying to portray himself as a pious Muslim leader and the only savior of Muslims from the Muslim world. But on the other hand, just because such statements and remarks help him and his party to remain in power, consolidate power, and mobilize support, they are continuously and repeatedly making such statements. And it's also very important here to not forget or ignore a statement made by Erdogan himself, in which he said, "My mercy exceeds my wrath." This is a very popularly known famous Islamic saying about Allah. This is something that is attributed to Allah often. And here, President Erdogan himself once talked about himself, referring to himself. He said, "My mercy exceeds my wrath." So, there could be the apologists of Erdogan could come out with a different context of it, could come out with a justification of it. But the fact is, this is not the only statement or a very few statements by the AKP members or AKP politicians, but we have seen over the period of 17 years, this party has been in power for over 17 years now, and we have seen a series of such remarks, and that really raises the question as if about their real or their sincerity towards Islam. It's unfortunately, we can see that these are the things that really contradicts the principles and fundamentals of Islam. No Muslim in their right mind would talk in those terms about a person. But
that is true, and but I think we're missing point the fact that this is important for you because you know from an Islamic background that it matters a lot. The way the things are said and the way the things are expressed, and what it means Islamically to say all those stuff, like for instance following Erdogan's Sunnah or touching him as a worship and this and that. And this is a rhetorical part of instrumentalization of Islam. They are abusing every rhetoric that is available to them. But when we're talking about instrumentalization of Islam, there are more serious concerns, like that more materialized concerns. For instance, the way the current regime is approaching to the foreign diaspora groups in abroad. Meaning, for instance, in Europe, we know there is a lot of Diyanet mosques, There's a lot of Süleymanci mosques and other mosques that are available, opened by Turkish people who have been there before in Europe and various other places, especially the ones that are run by the Diyanet. Some of them actually opened by local congregations, but the imam came as a post holder from Turkey. And in those places you can see those mosques are working like almost like information hub, almost like a profiling hub that we talked before. So they're trying to pass some information back to Turkey, and which is effectively espionage activities, which is mostly crime in many countries. Hence they are having difficulties in Germany, in Belgium, in various places, because once the mosque officials found or being proved that they are doing these sort of activities, the local authorities don't like them. The fact that some institutions that are classed as religious institutions use their power and authority to provide intelligence about their citizens to a foreign power, according to them. I think that's a big issue, especially in the Europe, and Diyanet is having a lot of problem. And I would say there is another aspect of it, apart from like gathering intelligence and everything. I can observe a lot of soft power sort of influence creating, let's say, efforts. At least I think it's working throughout the Ertugrul and other popular soap operas, that are broadcasted, and especially in Pakistan, I know they're very, very popular. In the Middle East, they are very popular, and the way they try to pass the message through those channels, the issues they are highlighting, the concept of jihad that they are promoting. Like some of my relatives in here from Pakistani origin, they were watching it in the UK, and you can see like they are always figuratively drawing a sword, and feeling their bloods boiled with jihad and everything. So this is another way of instrumentalizing Islam to rally people behind Erdogan. And I think one other thing is that the way he actually repeated some of the stuff that we assume in Turkey as normal, like for instance, Erdogan always just before an election, in many times as well, but especially before election, he visits mosques, let's say, attend prayers, and this is widely filmed. At the end of it, probably recites Quran, which he does very well because of his education, and which generates a lot of support. Most recently, when he came to Cambridge to open the mosque that was organized by Tim Winters and other British Muslims, which is, I think, a bit like, Erdogan's financial support was instrumental for that mosque to be open. So in return, they invited him, and he exactly did what he did in Turkey. And you can minute by minute observe that, and it is ripple effect in the Muslim society in here. Somehow he is psychologically affecting them, because they only see that a Muslim leader coming into a non-Muslim country, opening a mosque and reading Quran so beautifully and everything. So that is another way of actually him extending his political aspirations via Islamic practices and making it visibly. I think it's more than just verbal rhetoric. That's all I wanted to say.
True. Yeah, I mean, thank you for bringing in the discussion about Ertugrul Qazi, that serial, because that is also very, very popular in India now. And in the evening, at night, in fact, late at night, you can hear the music of that Netflix series coming from your neighbor's house. So it is so popular, and everybody, someone who in India, for example, as an Indian, I live here, and those who know that I have been to Turkey, I have lived there, I speak the Turkish language. Anyhow, if somebody understands that I have this Turkish connection, they come and definitely they tell me that I've been watching this serial and see how how good it is, and how it is showing Muslims as strong and as a community which can fight. So this is also very important that to understand that in this context already in this world which is already conflict ridden, we are seeing a television series or Netflix series talking about fighting with non-Muslims. All that is portrayed in Ertugrul Ghazi series is about how the Muslims were able to fight the Crusaders, and that brings in the obvious perception in the people's mind that it is right to take out sword and fight for your rights. You consider your rights, that's fine, but there are other ways in the modern world. You need to talk about bringing people together. You need to talk about dialogue. You need to talk about how we can solve our problems through talking and peaceful means. But unfortunately, in this series, we are seeing that for to protect your rights, it's okay to take out swords and fight your enemy. That is a message that this series gives, and I see that a lot of people watch it so gleefully and proudly. They feel that it is the right thing to do, and therefore we should do that in India and also in other countries too. So I am witness to what's happening in India and the Muslim community in India.
Yeah,
So I can talk about that.
probably you would have first-hand witness, Behzad, but I think if we just stand back for a while and see that it is actually started with the gladiators, Spartacus and others, like that historical drama, Rome and Tudors, and different dramas relate to different things. Like, for instance, the Western Tudors, I don't know who made it, but I think it was HBO again, is translated in Turkey maybe 10 years later as the Magnificent Suleiman. Yeah, like the palace intricacies and like conspiracies and this and that in a strong empire sort of a theme is Tudors England, translated as the Magnificent Century in Turkey. But that was done from a secular point of view, so there wasn't a lot of Islamic element. In fact, there was more, let's say, contradiction with the Islamic belief that many Turks assume their Ottoman leaders have been like very godly people, let's say. Okay, so Erdogan was actually initially criticizing. He was on the criticizing edge. He was saying our ancestors were not such people. So, but the more he take over the media, they are all in a way related, and the more this historical drama need has grown in the society, like with the Game of Thrones and others. You see again in English version as the First Kingdom, this and that. Like they are looking back and trying to make sense of history and trying to give a message out of it. So it generates some sort of a demand for that sort of a product. Now we are in an age where the Spanish and Brazilian soap operas are outdated, which used to be a big deal before. Now historical dramas are very much in demand. The tricky bit in here is that if you know a little bit of Turkish politics, and whilst you're watching either Payitaht, about Abdülhamit Han, or if you are watching Ertugrul, you can see that it's also about daily politics. The initial target audience is in Turkey, and those people to feel in a certain way, and you can generate the feeling. For instance, many people in Turkey feel themselves as if they are in fight with the whole world because of all these soap operas. Yeah, and it's in a you join into this virtual world. Well, you are fighting in the form of Ertugrul and Abdülhamit and others, and have all those emotions, live it very vividly, and then come out into real world, and well, of course there'll be some tomato prices increased and this and that, because it's a struggle. There is a power, and you feel like you're almost up against the whole world, and you should stand behind your political leader and everything. So it works 100%. But I think at the point Erdogan realized the importance of this soft influencing powers or the media, let's say in the form of fiction. So they probably started to, especially I would say this to, especially for Pakistani audience, because you can see that they are trying to put some stuff, like in the old series there wasn't, but in the new ones, about wording, about the way, or about at least the actors visiting those places and generate that interest from the theory, yeah? And then trying to create an hinterland of some, and there is others to come in the pipeline, so there is a long history of wars. You can integrate a lot, so you can see just like Americans used to justify, you can see where how the contradicting ideas can actually transform the opposing parties. Like people used to complain about Hollywood in Turkey, the Islamist of Turks, now in a way creating their own version of the Hollywood and influencing others to think like them, rally behind him and everything. And I think Islam is being because they can't do under this regime a lot of, let's say, eroticism and other, sexual nudity and this and that you would expect from a historical drama like the one in the West, like Game of Thrones and others. So they are compensating that and increasing the dose of the use of religion, the use of violence, the use of actually the especially bloodshed and this and that. Some of them in Turkey are censored out, but abroad probably it goes as it is. I'm not entirely sure because Turkish laws are slightly different than the way, but it's a very, very strong tool, and it looks like Erdogan regime will be using that even more in the future. Well,
Yeah. So
can I ask a question at this point? Because you have brought this topic in one of your previous videos, and it was in Urdu, so I didn't understand a lot of it. Let's say, why it is important to you? Why did you brought that up, for instance?
yes, this is a very important question, and instrumentalization, I say, because, and also it is problematic because we know of the fact that Erdogan is harboring ambition to become the, kind of the leader of the Muslim world, or in other words, the caliph of the Muslim world by 2023. He is planning, and his government and his party is planning to establish a caliphate, a new Ottoman caliphate of a kind in Turkey. And therefore, they need the support of not only Muslims in Turkey, but also support of the Muslim community, the wider Muslim community in the world. And therefore, with a television series like Ertugrul Ghazi and statements, remarks such as this, the remarks that we talked about in the beginning of our program today, they're trying to mobilize and garner support, mobilize people and garner support of the Muslim community in other parts of the world too. So, of course, one in India, a Muslim in India, for example, would not support a leader of Turkey, but if somebody presents himself as an Islamic leader, a good Muslim, a pious Muslim, and somebody who is ready to protect and fight for the rights of the Muslim, then of course we will see, and we do see, a lot of support for such a leader. And that is one of the reasons why President Erdogan, because he presents himself like that, he presents himself like a pious leader and somebody who's willing to fight for the rights of the Muslims. Therefore, we see a lot of Muslims in India supporting him. And for example, recently I also came across an article by an African scholar. I think he's from Ethiopia. His name is Abdullah Yimam Ali. And he published an article, an academic paper actually, in which he claimed that Erdogan is the prophesized Mahdi. That was the claim in his paper. He said Quranic verses uh, that proves that Erdogan is the prophesied Mahdi. That was the claim in his paper, and he talked about different verses of the Quran to prove the point, to argue that Erdogan is Mahdi, the savior of humanity.
I don't want to contradict you, but since you sent the paper to me, I looked at it. It was not necessarily the meaning of the verses. It was like the mathematical calculations of the certain verses that indicates certain important times in Erdogan's life. So hence that sort of a
Yes.
connection there was. So it wasn't as academic. I don't know, like just because it was published. I don't know where it was published either. Anyway, yeah, go on.
But of course we cannot say that this is us who can read it and say that, see, there are these flaws in this paper, and therefore it does not match that standard of an academic paper. But actually I saw a lot of people in India sharing that article. I saw a lot of people sharing that article and praising it, and trying to also and kind of agreeing with what Abdullah Imam Ali had to say. So it is for scholars to debate about this, but likewise, the statements made by members of parliament of the AKP, they're also un-Islamic. Any Islamic scholar would agree, would definitely say that these are un-Islamic things. You cannot say it, and this it is totally rubbish. But the fact is, a lot of the gullible masses, they take it seriously, and they think that if a politician, if an MP of Turkey is saying something, it might be something valuable. It could be right. So this is problematic. Uh, so that is one thing. And so of course, yeah, coming back to your question, why I decided to talk about this topic. So yes, there is a massive propaganda, not only in Turkey. I'm talking about in India and this subcontinent, in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, these countries which have the largest number of Muslim population in the world. Here, I am seeing massive propaganda in favor of Erdogan, portraying him, depicting him as a pious Muslim leader who is fighting for the rights of Muslims. But unfortunately, all those people who forward videos, for example, made in Pakistan, there is a channel called RTE in Urdu, so Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Urdu, and they very professionally make short videos about him. They quote him, and they make different kind of informative videos about Erdogan, and how he is doing how his policies are beneficial for Turkey and the world, and especially the Muslim world. So they are making such videos, producing such videos, and such videos are circulating widely among the Muslim circles in India. A lot of times I receive such videos, people saying that,
Yes.
see, here is a leader who stood up to the French President Macron,
Yes,
who made
yes,
uh,
yes, definitely.
such, against
Especially
against
in Urdu, it is very, very strong, the propaganda. I can see that as well. I saw their Urdu Facebook page dedicated to Erdogan is very strong as well. And I also
yeah,
saw uh, over the time, of course, Erdogan learned, or his team learned, how to propagate and how to get some sound back from where they are, you know, um, which news would sell in which part of the world. For instance, when there was this Myanmar problem, like 2 years ago, when it inflamed again, when the BBC was doing news about it, Erdogan said a few things about the Myanmar government and also sent some support. And then I was invited as a Turkish person into a Pakistani Indian gathering in the UK, and there was a lot of nice stuff said about him, like only as Islamic leader he stood up for this and sent help and everything, and they are sharing this English article about the however many million support that he sent. And I checked the Turkish version. Of course, Turkish version was slightly different, because the problem was I was trying to organize a fundraising with a British charity in here, and the big problem was how you can't get the support into the local Muslims who are suffering. You have to give it to the authorities there, which is Myanmar authorities, which is the army, effectively. So I checked it out. It was the support was delivered to the army who was killing the Muslims, that they would hopefully distribute it. But even that small amount, if you withheld that information from the English version, which wasn't there in English version, many people thought that Erdogan, despite the Myanmar government, supported. So he did just two things at the same time. He just verbally attacked Myanmar government, maybe three things. So he looked fine on the Muslim side. He looked as if he stand up. And then he said he delivered, which is good, but that support goes to Myanmar army. I'm not even thinking that they are at all giving that support to the Muslims that they are trying to kill at that time. Very similar to this, again, well, actually there are two more international issues in the past. That one is starting of his career when Iraq was to be invaded by USA. They wanted to use Turkey as a third or fourth base, and Erdogan fought very hard to make that happen in the parliament. Of course, this is the detail no one knows, but the next day the parliament rejected Erdogan's, the newly elected leader's, hard efforts to give America a ticket to attack Iraq from Turkey. The parliament rejected, despite the government, despite Erdogan's big effort. But the way it was reflected in the international media was, Turkey rejected, hence government rejected, Erdogan rejected America. So he still have this great credit. Many people don't know the details, that actually he was very angry because of that rejection, because he had a different dealing with Americans at that time, and he couldn't deliver it at the time. The second one is about the Mavi Marmara incident. I was in Turkey, and he harvested that wind or that publicity very well. He showed it as if he was, saying and doing something. But later on, 2 years later, 3 years later, all those cases in Turkey are suppressed by Erdogan regime to stop pursuing their rights and claiming anything from Israel government for a like $16 million or something for entire 150 plus victims that have been affected by that. But they are all turned out and used and still being used, and then Davos incident again, as someone who is standing up and raising, with the exception that he can't even mock about this, I think, is the Uyghur genocide. He can't even probably risk even for seemingly to stand up for them, because even if he does the opposite in the policy, he generally stand up, at least in theory. But he didn't do that for this, because I think China is slightly different, quite a bit different in comparison. But I don't know, as you said, it's a very important topic, the instrumentalization of Islam by Erdogan regime is
Talk about the Mavi Marmara incident. I'm also reminded of the fact that at the time when this incident happened, and Turkish Islamic scholar Fethullah Gülen, he said that there were other ways to help the Palestinians, the Gazans. There are you could have taken permission and cooperate with the authorities, and you could have done it in that way too. And at that time, Erdogan lambasted him, saying that it was me who gave permission to the flotilla to sail to Gaza, But who are they referring to? Who is he referring to? Referring to Gülen, he said, who is he referring to as authorities? If you're talking about authorities in Turkey, it is me. There's nobody else here. But a few years later, when he was trying to reconcile with the state of Israel, he came out and said publicly that, did you ask the prime minister of the day, did you take permission from the prime minister of the day while before sailing to Gaza, before making such an attempt? So, I mean, these contradictory statements, people know about what he said at the time when the Mavi Marmara was stormed by Israeli commandos, and I think more than 10 people were killed in that incident. And he, of course, came out very strongly against Israel at the time. He raised slogans in his, in his typical style. But a few years later, when he actually himself is criticizing the organizers of the flotilla, he nobody is talking about it. He clearly says that, did you take permission? Now he's denying giving permission, but that a few years earlier he was saying that I gave permission. So these contradictions nobody really talks about, and nobody really talks about because such statements are not circulated or propagated the way his other statements are. So what suits his political interest,
Very true.
he
I mean, there is
using the state machinery, because in Turkey the media is not free at all. It's not free at all, and therefore it's easy for him to use state news agency like Anadolu News Agency or TRT news channel to broadcast news that are totally pro Erdogan. There's not even a possibility of something even slightly critical of the government or Erdogan. So this is what he's using. And since we were talking about this, I was also reminded of the recent incident at Boğaziçi University. A rector, a person is appointed as the rector of the university who is a member of the ruling party, and there are doubts about his academic credentials too. There is allegations against him of plagiarizing his PhD doctoral thesis. But when students and at that university, the culture, the norm is that the university elects its rector from within its staff, from the academic staff. They elect a rector there. But this time, the president directly appointed a rector to the university. Now, when the students were protesting this move, number one, police came down very heavily against the protesting students and the faculty of the university. But since the students were able to sustain the protests for some time, they came out with this allegation that these students are somehow insulting Islam. They came out with that the LGBT community, the LGBT club of the university, is behind these protests, and this community is the student fraternity of Boğaziçi is insulting Islam because they totally focused on a drawing, I think a drawing made by the LGBT community, protesting LGBT community, and as if everything else, as if wasn't there. It's as if the only protesting students at Boğaziçi were the LGBT students, and they were insulting Islam. So he knows that there is the Turkish population, majority of Turkish people are, number one, homophobic, and number two, if we use an Islamic argument to discredit this protest, people will buy it. They will accept it. And therefore he came down. Ignoring everything else, he and his media totally focused on that incident, and that small group of protesters within the large group of protesters. and saying that, see, these are the people who are doing it. So this is, like, again, an instrumentalization of Islam. You have done something that is not democratic. That is not even Islamic. In Islam there is consultation. You take whatever action you take it with consultation. But here you are appointing a person to a university without taking the without considering the opinion of the university itself. And
Yeah, definitely.
when the university, the students, the faculty members of the university are protesting, you are bringing in a small
R-
incident
a religious,
with some
religious
Jews as
color to
well.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're giving a communal or religious color to it, and then trying to discredit it. So this is what he has been doing. Now, this happened recently with the Gezi Park protests, and previously he did that during the sorry, he this happened with the Boğaziçi University protests now, but previously he did that with the 2013 Gezi Park protests too. When in fact, it started with a small group of environmentalists protesting against turning of the Gezi Park in central Istanbul into a mall, and I think shopping complex and all these things. So they protested that, and then slowly it became a nationwide anti-government protest. Now, to discredit that protest, what Erdogan said in public is that these people, the protesters, entered a mosque with beers, right? And he also said that these
And
protesters,
shoes and footwear as well, not only beers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also they attacked one of my hijabi sisters, right? I think that was the exact phrase that he used. So these protesters attacked a hijabi woman in Turkey at Kabatash. I think that was the neighborhood in central Istanbul. Turkey. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, in fact, he also said that I will come out with the footage of the incident.
Yes.
The government will come out with the footage of the incident, but on a Friday, on the coming Friday, that was his statement. But that Friday still hasn't come.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately. By the way, they didn't hear my voice a moment ago, so you had the privilege to hear that. Yeah, I just gave a description of what happened in Kabatash. The people who are above their vest, naked and wearing leather jackets and urinating and everything. So it's just not that you don't know another propaganda machine. Throughout the examples you gave, Behzad, there is a pattern. One is a doing one thing and saying the other. Yeah. For
mhm.
instance, Erdogan is known to be anti-Israel, but he's the only government in Turkey that led the most pro-Israeli things to happen, which is not necessarily bad or good itself. It's just he says one thing and sells that as his policy to locals and others, but he effectively does another thing in reality. And the other thing is, like, he does both of the things and sells both of them into different parties. For instance, Turkey under the Erdogan regime become one of the few, or maybe the only Muslim country that legalized homosexuality, and that was one of the European Union, I think, criterias. So Erdogan sells this to European partners as a success. But on the other hand, whenever he's got a problem, he tries to deem them to be homosexuals and anti-religious people and this and that domestically, and solve that in that way, just like in the Bosphorus University incident. Uh,
Was
Boğaziçi University, yeah. So, well, Bosphorus, if like if you want to take the
Okay.
English name. But
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
one other thing I think was like the Davos, for instance. He really did stand up to, I think it was Shimon Peres, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shimon.
And then, so it went viral. So everyone watched the video. Half an hour later, when it is, went viral, he gave another interview, say, my reaction wasn't to Mr. Perez, it was to the moderator. I didn't mean that, I meant this, I meant we're not given enough time to talk and this and that. And so what happened is he immediately apologized. Probably in Israel they played this part of the clip more than the other part, but for the rest of the world it was Erdogan stand up against the oppressor Israeli leader, let's say. And it is still
Mm-hmm.
to date, although he later apologized or said otherwise, to date it's been also propagated, and some of them are professionally done, professionally done, as the TV channel you said in Urdu, and generate this sort of content. We know from WikiLeaks emails from Berat Albayrak, for instance, even in Turkey. Well, to begin with, in Turkey they used to do like, okay, we're creating 10 homophobic, anti-Semitic, and other sort of anti-PKK videos every day, 30-second short videos, and these, and sort of like they have an agency agreement with certain content creators to generate all these sort of videos that would make people more nationalist or more religious or more hateful towards Kurds or Jews and this and that. So that is an effective policy that has been in place as well, and I think you've given very, very good examples about it. That is pretty much, like we can talk about this
Yeah, I
more,
mean, there's
but in every,
enormous.
yeah.
But I think I'm just reminded of one more, and I think it is very important to give this one too. So, one this I think one of the newspapers, Sabah, I believe, this Sabah is the Turkish newspaper, and they also have an English version called Daily Sabah.
Mm-hmm.
They once published an article about the Hizmet movement, the Gülen movement, saying in the Turkish version, they had this headline, this title, that the Hizmet movement is an American backed, a CIA backed
Working for
movement.
Vatican, yes, I remember. In Turkish version, I could
Yeah,
probably even
and
give the date, yes. And this,
yes, and on the other hand, in the English version, they came out with the title that this is the Hizmet movement is a radical Islamist social movement.
wants to
This
bring
is
Sharia.
a terrorist, yeah, and
Yes,
wants to bring Sharia in Turkey. So,
exactly.
for different audiences, they have a different narrative, and they so brazenly and shamefully, shamelessly, could say such things on this same day. Same day, in the Turkish language, they are calling Hizmet movement an CIA-backed agency, and on the other, a CIA-backed organization, and on the other hand, in the English version, it is calling the Hizmet movement a radical Islamist organization, which is trying to bring
Exactly.
Sharia law in Turkey. So
Well,
this is the hypocrisy, and it is so brazen. It is so
this is
it's
politics, Behzad. I think this is politics at its best. You see, like I used to be, my background is, I'm from political Islamist background, very, very young age. I have a picture with Erdogan, but I don't have a picture with Gülen, for instance. Yeah, keep that in mind. I was that close in terms of the ideals of political Islam through my family and other channels. I was very much intrigued when I was a teenager. But after these incidents, I grow some sort of antipathy against all the politicians. So, for instance, for instance, one of the politicians that always says what you want to hear, that you feel like it can't be true. Yeah. Apart from Venezuelan the legend himself, just put him aside because we never heard him. But let's say the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, yeah, he's always like, this so positive, say the right thing guy and stuff. But just because of my bitterness of politicians like Erdogan, I looked into him just a little and I realized he's exactly, like a better version of Erdogan, not as horrible, not as authoritarian because the system doesn't allow. But of course, just says what people need to hear. And that is politics, unfortunately. And I think at the moment, a lot of Muslims want to hear a lot of Islamic stories. They want to hear someone shouting, someone raising their voice, because it's been like a century where effectively majority of the Muslims have been battered left, right and center. So they want someone to stand up. And when they see anything resembling to stand up, although it might be just for another reason, they seem to buy it. They are willing, and I used to buy it. I thought Erdogan was in this because of his love for the country. I didn't realize he was in this because he wanted to be rich and corrupt and be an authoritarian leader he is now. But yes, I think that's a very good way of putting that. Thank you very much. Yes.
So, right. Do we have some comments?
We do, in fact. Let's see what we can do. So first of all, someone said it's very nice. It's a good topic. It's a huge problem for Muslim leaders who is being dictator. Erdogan is very famous. Ertugrul is very famous show among US Muslim American community as well. I mean, it's well done. They are very professional now. So, anything you do sells better. I don't know. I'm trying to put the comments on, but somehow, let me just quickly. I don't know why the comments doesn't show up. That's not nice.
Okay. Yeah. For the audience, maybe it'll be fair to say that although it's my channel, but Dr. Ismail Sezgin is helping me do this live
facilitating broadcast. Let's say, okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's a good time to remind, if you just come by, please, since you're here, please subscribe to Behzad's channel, and it will be sometimes doing our program in here. So there was one good comment, another good comment here is that there is this apparently a propaganda in Africa, South Africa especially, that in one incident Erdogan goes to Friday prayer, but the masjid is full, so he prays the Jummah near the shoe rack, just near the door of the masjid. A leader did not utilize his power and status to reserve a place for Salah. So sort of like a lot of this sort of, in Turkish version there is a lot of jokes about this as well. Like for instance, Erdogan's mother went to to see Erdogan's condition whilst he was in mother's womb, and this and that, there was irregularity, so they check it, and it was namaz time and he was praying in there, and sort of like people now know in Turkey there is a lot of jokes, but some of the stuff that actually generated are unbelievable, but still for people who want to believe them are actually believing it. So Ali Akka says that Islams are after power and richness. They're hungry for power. Ertugrul is like a mirage in the desert of this hunger. Yes.
Right.
Pharaoh and Erdogan are similar to each other from point of illusion. That's the good one. Someone said, someone told me that Erdogan is mentioned in the Quran. Sorry, I can't show the comments. I don't know. Normally they should have come onto the screen. I'm trying, but the program goes, but the comment doesn't come up. I don't know why. Anyway, and he says now And he says Beldetun Tayyibetun. Belde is the city, which is Istanbul, and Tayyibetun is Tayyib, he said. And he said in the Quran, he said, I also said, Azhabtum tayyibatukum dunya, which means you finished everything here in the earth. You consumed everything, especially like your good deeds and stuff. And when he heard this, he was surprised. He says, yes. I think some Muslims around the world yearn for a world leader who can stand up and be the voice of Muslims. Despite Erdogan's hypocrisies and atrocities, they say there is no one else to speak. Yes, that's true. I mean, like, a lot of people see him in that position. And except, I think, I don't know how he's going to manage that about the Uyghur Muslims, but except on that topic, he has always seen as he's doing the right thing or saying the right thing, and people are willing to give him credit for that, although in practice it might be opposite, but that is, you know.
But with Chinese, he's not even able to say something about it, because we recently saw with the case of Mesut Özil,
yes,
the footballer. Yeah, he said something. He criticized Chinese and extended his support for the Uyghurs.
Yes.
And suddenly he was out of the team, the league that he was playing for.
Behzad, many people don't know that. That is far before he actually go to Turkey. Yes, he stand up for Uyghurs. Mesut Özil deserves credit for that. He was asked to back down. He didn't. So it became very expensive for Arsenal to make him play. So and it was upsetting, let's say, Chinese sponsors. So Arsenal couldn't let him play and couldn't keep such an expensive player, and they couldn't resolve this, so they had to let him go. For his part, it was very credited. So it's a very, very difficult. Apparently, China is very autocratic when it comes to foreign policy as well. So I think they wouldn't let's say, they wouldn't let Erdogan to even say something, even if in reality he contradicts. The Israeli model of Erdogan wouldn't work in China, at least not at this point.
True, and it shows that Erdogan is not as powerful as people really think in this part of the world. At least I can say, they think that he's the only one, from in the Muslim world. No Arab leader says anything about any happening against
Arab leaders.
He's the only one. He is not only not doing anything, but also he's silent. In other case, he doesn't do anything, but he speaks. But in this case, he is not even able to speak, and
I think in Pakistan with the new prime minister, very, very similar style. I'm afraid that he might go populist like Erdogan in time, the more he stays in the office, because they have a very, very similar style. You can see that Erdogan might have generated a template for being successful in a Muslim country. Look like modern, but present Islamic values and propagate about them. Talk to people, but negotiate with the West, and then just as far as you say the right things and do the right things, everyone is happy. I think that's how he gets away with a lot of stuff. Like he said, no one can let this priest go free, and the same week a political decision was made to let the American priest go free. People just...
You're talking about Andrew Brinson.
Yeah, Andrew Brinson.
Yeah.
It's what I'm saying is I have no problem with him being, he shouldn't have been arrested in the first place. What I was trying to say is that he gives that sometimes you can even recognize, okay, he's gonna do the opposite, because he need to say something where people take him, whatever he said, in his face value, and they believe in him, and they want to believe in him. I'm afraid like maybe more people does this to believe in the leader and not follow up the action, let's say. And then when the opposite happens, the story comes out, well, he's not in control of everything. That's why he needs our support. Otherwise, he wouldn't let him go. Someone else did that, but he can't stop it, and he's weak. We need to support him and that sort of stuff. But I think that is a story that can be, told for many other things.
Mm-hmm. True.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your channel. It was nice to be a guest in here, and maybe we should do this more often. Now you know how stressful it is to do a live stream, and
I know, and and I really think that my viewers and your viewers all should thank you and appreciate you for doing it for such a long time. You have been doing live broadcasts for a very long time, and you have been doing it very successfully.
well,
I have
well,
it today.
if you were to do
Taste
that,
of it.
Behzad, of course I'll try to do it a very cheap way, everything. So I'm now trying to gradually upgrade my equipment. There are things like, for instance, I can now switch the screen very easily with one button that prepared earlier. But of course it's a difficult thing, like you're doing exactly with the technology being so resourceful and allowing it to happen. We can, like write things, show the videos, show the, graphics and everything in one go. A phone can achieve a lot, and I'm sure you'll be doing fine. But it will take some time. I'll give you whatever I have, in at least as an advice, or some of my old equipment if needed. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, all right. So with this, we come to the end of our today's program. Thank you, Dr. Ismail Sezgin, for joining us, and thank you all the viewers for watching us, listening to us. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, and also like my previous videos and this one too, if you really like them. I look forward to seeing you. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.